Hi, I'm Jackie Tantillo, and this is Should Have Listened to My Mother. Before I introduce my guest, I'd like to thank you for bringing Should Have Listened to My Mother into our 5th season, and thanks to all who helped us get recognized as a 2023 People's Choice Podcast Award nominee. We are moving full steam ahead, and all of us at Should Have Listened to My Mother appreciate your comments, feedback, and reviews, and that means the world to us. And you can always reach out to me at jackie@shouldhavelistenedtomymother.com with questions and comments. I'm very excited for you to meet my guest. You're going to be totally inspired. You're going to move mountains after you hear what John has to share with us. John R. Miles' recent book, Passionstruck, 12 Powerful Principles to Unlock Your Purpose and Ignite Your Most Intentional Life. He dedicated it to his 2 children and all of his readers, and he continues, he says, the world needs more trailblazers who find their calling, pursue it passionately, and have a positive impact on the world. Why wait when you have it in you to make a choice? Work hard every day, step into your sharp edges, and do something every day that scares you and promotes self-realization. I hope you choose to start today. John is a Navy veteran, peak performance coach, multi-industry CEO, and entrepreneur, and he'd love to guide you toward a limitless future. He aspires to help people create the most intentional life possible. He's the host of the podcast, Passionstruck with John R. Miles. And it's a pleasure to have you on the show, John. Hi.
Hi, Jackie. Thank you so much for being here. It's such an honor.
The impact that the positive energy can have on one's life is limitless, and I know you know that. But we're going to talk about your book and your podcast more succinctly in just a little bit. So I am so curious about who helped you become who you are today. And I have a feeling that there was some sort of major shift or transition in your life at some point that got you to where you are today. But let's pull back the layers of things. How about if we just start off with your mom's name? That would be wonderful.
Yeah, my mom is Elizabeth, but she goes by Betty.
Where did you grow up? In the U.S., overseas?
No, I grew up in the U.S. I was born in Rochester, and we migrated from there for the first 6 to 9 years of my life throughout the Midwest, Cleveland, Ohio, Chicago, Illinois, and then I spent the next 9 years of my life growing up in South Central Pennsylvania.
Okay. And are you from a large family?
I have 2 younger siblings, so not that large.
And what was it like as a kid growing up? Was your mom present? Was she working?
Yeah, I was very fortunate that my mom was working before I was born, but she and my dad made the decision that she was going to be a stay-at-home mom. And so I was very fortunate that she was a very present fixture in our lives.
And on a day-to-day basis, she was around, she got you to school, all that kind of stuff. She was involved in activities. When you close your eyes, what's a vision that comes to you when you were a young child? Is there one that you can recall?
Well, my parents, neither one of them were the type who, I guess, ever did things for us. They wanted us to be self-sufficient. So I remember even as a 2nd or 3rd grader, I lived probably a mile away from the school. And even back then, after showing me how to get there, it was one of these things that you have to manage getting to and from school yourself. You need to be self-sufficient in life. And they kind of taught us all at a young age that doing so required us to have grit in order to do it. So I remember as a kid, the cold mornings, walking through the snow, the rain. I mean, occasionally they would take us, they would take us to school, but I think they were always the type who provided the essentials for us. But if there were things that we wanted above and beyond that, whether it was when we were younger doing chores around the house or good deeds or volunteering for others, that kind of imbued us with this sense that those other things needed to be earned.
Was it the same for you as it was for your sister, as far as this independence and learning how to be self-sufficient?
Well, I think for my sister and it was probably quite similar. My brother is 6 years younger than I am, and I think for him, they relaxed a bit. I think definitely for me, and I think it's the same for a lot of the first kids. I mean, let's face it, I don't care what parenting book is out there. I have never found one that completely prepares you in life for what it's truly like to be a parent. And so I think that they were doing a lot of experimentation on me. And I think they had very high expectations for the person they wanted me to become in life.
So I just want to clarify, you have two younger siblings, correct?
I have a sister who's 3 years younger and a brother who's 6 years younger.
Was there a strong religious presence in your life, a church involvement and things like that, faith?
Yeah, we were raised in a strict Roman Catholic household. I remember my paternal grandmother used to go to church every single day, but on both sides of the family, both sides were Catholic families.
When you think of your mom, would you see her happiest doing what? Spending time with you and your siblings, when she was involved with the community, when she was with her family, listening to music, dining out? I mean, what made her happy?
I know later in life, after after I graduated high school and when my siblings were older, she worked for about 25 to 27 years at the Tennessee Aquarium and was employee number 2. And I know for her, that brought her a ton of satisfaction in life. I think growing up, I think I saw her have the most joy playing guitar. She loved to do that. She was an artist. I remember she was part of the junior league and loved to do those things. But I also think, I mean, some of my fondest memories were we were a household that loved to watch sports. And so I remember, on Saturday, it was always something dealing with the University of Michigan. And then on Sunday, we would always watch the NFL games. And she was the one who was constantly bringing things out to us and making it a family type event.
So she was watching as well, not just coming and going with food and things. She was into football as well, or just being with the family.
A bit of both. I mean, I wouldn't say she's the biggest football fan on earth, but she definitely loves the University of Michigan, especially, and enjoyed going to games.
Are either parent or you a Michigan alumni?
Yeah, everyone in my family is my. I am not, but I got in, and I think that was one of the biggest disappointments for my father is when I didn't go. But both my parents are my grandparents, aunts, uncles. Yeah, everyone comes from going to University of Michigan.
The big house.
Yes.
I don't know if you could imagine this. Say your mom didn't get married and have children. Do you think she would have pursued her musical career fully? Or what do you think she would do if she could not do it all over again, but if she could just say, oh, I would go do this?
Before I was born, she was a teacher. But I think she has always been extremely creative. I think she would have done something that probably impacted less fortunate people. I know she is very enthusiastic about her work that she does with her church for the people in Haiti and is very passionate about that calling. And I knew when I was growing up, she always loved to do volunteering to help the less fortunate. So I think she would have probably done something along those lines that would have helped social causes.
And she's still with us today.
Yep. Fortunately, both my parents are still with us.
Wow, you're very lucky. That's such a gift. It seems as though that your roots are pretty, not only solid, but they're coming from the right place, right? The messages your parents wanted to teach you, the involvement with the community, giving back to people. Is that your beginning, your grounding of who you are now, or was there a major transition in your life somewhere?
Well, I think my parents and grandparents were very big at trying to instill in us the core values, and many of them were the Catholic values of how you should approach life, which in many ways was a conservative mindset. Um, I guess I didn't realize it when I was younger. It's more pronounced now, but it was pretty interesting to be in a household where you had a father who was very conservative and a mother who was liberal. So you got to hear both perspectives, which I think has formed my views to be kind of a moderate that sits in between them and is willing to hear both sides out rather than feeling like I have to take one stand or another. And I think that balanced aspect of my life has been foundational in propelling me where I've gotten to, because I don't always come into things judgmentally, and I try to see all the different perspectives before I align on a final decision. But if you would ask both my parents now if they ever thought in a million years would I be doing what I'm doing now, I think they would both tell you, as I would tell you, the answer would be no.
If you said to your mom, say, we'll take when you were a young teen, I have this conflict with someone at school, or did you ever get beat up? My husband was beat up all the time in middle school. A conflict with peers. Would your mom be the kind of woman who would march down to the school and go defend you, or your parents would say, you need to take care of this yourself, non-physical or physical, whatever their perspective was?
No, it was definitely on us.
It was on you. Did you ever just once that they would go and stick up for you, and not have to make you do it?
Probably, but at the time, it just, I mean, I knew it wasn't a possibility, so you kind of just put that out of your mind. But they were also in the type, and luckily I grew up in an area that was a safe neighborhood, so I remember having the freedom as a kid that as long as we were getting good grades and doing our chores and things like that, it was almost one of these things that as soon as you got done your schoolwork, go out and play with your friends and explore, and just make sure you come back at dusk for dinner. And so it was great having that upbringing, because I was able to explore and have friends and play sports or create forts or do whatever I wanted to. But I did reach a point fairly early on in my life, when I was 5 or 6, where, if the listener is familiar with Jim Quick, who I love his books, I remember interviewing Jim, and he often calls himself the boy with the broken brain. And I remember talking to him and saying, I can absolutely put myself in your position, because I was the same person. And when I was 5 or 6 years old, I was playing tag with some neighbors, and I got pushed from behind and flew in the air and wound up crashing through our basement window, and had to get all these stitches. And unfortunately, it caused a whole bunch of cognitive issues, ranging from speech impairment to auditory and processing disorders. And so from that point forward, when I was in class or around friends, I was always an introvert, but I think it made me more introverted, because I would stutter, I would lose words, I would mispronounce things, and it really impacted my confidence. And so I remember, quite vividly that it was my mom who used to take me to all the different counseling sessions that I had to go to. And then eventually I was old enough that I was able to walk to where I would see the speech pathologist at school, but she definitely helped me through that and tried to instill confidence. But it was a challenging aspect for me to, and it still impacts me today. But similar to Jim Quick, you learn to train your brain over time to, I guess, get through those types of barriers that life throws at you.
Initially, right, I can imagine the devastation and the emotional impact of it all. But if that was your impetus to get you to where you are today, that's why people often say you have to embrace these things that knock you down, because you get up, you seem to be a lot stronger down the line. So I applaud you for all that you've had to go through this whirlwind experience, especially at a young age. That's hard. That's a lot for a kid.
Well, that's definitely something I think if you talk about the aspect of becoming what it means to be passion struck and things that I've seen in other people who become passion struck, it's I don't dwell on these setbacks. I think, as with anything, there comes to a period where something happens and then you have an emotional letdown. Obviously, you might feel anger, you might feel this or that, but I've always kind of gone through the cycle knowing that I need to treat whatever's happening in my life as a learning experience, and that on the other side of it, this is happening for a reason that's going to make me stronger. And I think that ability to see setbacks in that way has been foundational for me to do the reinventions I've had to do along the way. But quite frankly, now that I've been an entrepreneur, have helped me through these periods of self-doubt that anyone who's ever started a business or a company of any sort, or put themselves out there maybe to be a professional athlete or to open their own practice if they're a doctor or attorney, are going to face that when these things hit you, no matter how hard they may feel at the moment, you've got to just keep persevering and intentionally choosing the path of growth time and time again.
What would be some words that Betty would use to describe your personality and what you've experienced in life and how you've gotten to where you are today? My son.
I think she would say my son is a fighter. My son is someone who has reached heights I never expected he would achieve. My son is someone who's had the courage to take personal risks and put himself out there in trying to help people overcome the stuckness that he felt in his life during times because he doesn't want people to feel the numbness and the apathy that inflicted him. And I think she would say, I hope she would say that she's proud of what I've been able to accomplish and the parent that I've become.
Did your military service not embellish, but even reinforce all of your mottos and your perspectives to get you to where you are today? There's a lot of discipline, and that must have been hard if you had any kind of disadvantage or disability as far as learning at that stage in your life. But that's a pretty rigorous role to jump into the Navy.
Yeah, I guess when I was at that crossroads that we all face, like the famous Frost poem that, there were two paths and I chose the harder one. I think I faced that when I was making my decision on where I was going to go to college. And I was a highly recruited athlete and had gotten into Michigan and University of Indiana, Brown, Duke, a few others. And I had also gotten into the Naval Academy. And I remember as a kid, we would take our relatives down to Annapolis. And I remember hearing the plebes getting yelled at, et cetera. And as a younger kid, thinking there's no way I would ever want to go there. But as I grew older, this whole idea of being a leader and wanting to be a leader started really becoming a core passion for me. And I think 99% of people would have thought I would have made the decision to go to Michigan. And I ended up choosing the Naval Academy. And I think it is one of those decisions that has been one of the best ones I've ever made. That said, I do wish sometimes I would have had more of the free thinking perspectives that I would have gotten at a more liberal university such as Brown or the University of Michigan, because if you think about my childhood, I went from being conservatively raised, growing up in parochial schools, to then going into more mind melt of being in the military. So I do think it took me a number of years into my professional journey before I allowed myself to authentically become who I am today. And I think that was probably slowed down by that time in the military. And but other than that, I think it gave me so many foundational lessons and learnings that have stayed with me throughout my life.
Was it something that you did out of spite against your dad or something to decide to go to the Navy, or was it just something that you thought was right for you at the time?
No, I mean, my dad is a Marine Corps veteran and my grandfather served in the Army. So I've more felt it was, I thought it was going to position me the best for the life I wanted to lead. And I also thought that going to a civilian school was taking the easy path, and the path that was going to be much harder that I would grow from would be the one of going to the Naval Academy.
And it's decisions like that that help you become more grounded. You have to make those decisions for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons. And that's what I admire. Or the fear of 2 generations before me were in the military, so I need to follow their lead. I know that wasn't an easy decision to make, but it's those hard choices, like you said, are the ones that make us stronger. That fear is something that we just have to say bye-bye to, because it can really get in the way. But it's fascinating, this story, and I just want to talk briefly about a couple of your episodes that I listened to of your podcast, Passionstruck with John R. Miles, because I hope that they do listen. The one about Savior Complex was really fascinating. And is it Lydia Fennett, the charity auctioneer? She's brilliant. No doesn't mean no. So many wonderful messages in all of your guest interviews. It's really great, John. And Maria Menounos, she was brilliant as well, talking about her health crisis and her parents' health crisis. And it just, a different perspective, and being willing to kind of take that step off that ledge, that one step forward, and put your whole life in a different trajectory is often frightening, but it's really, you're going to get so much life and vitality and power out of trying something different and new.
No, absolutely. And thank you for bringing all those up. Those are 3 great examples. Lydia Fennett is definitely a rock star, and at one time was the top charity auctioneer in the entire world. She has shared the stage with more well-known people than possibly Joe Biden. It's amazing how much she has done, but I love her message because it's a core message I like to talk about as well, is that action leads to action. And Maria Menounos, what I try to do on the podcast that I think makes it different is I'm not out there trying to chase having these extremely well-known people on the podcast. I think that helps your ratings, and it helps obviously get more guests to want to come on the show. But I try to pick handpick people for the audience that they can learn from seeing that person's personal story. And so that's why I ended up having Maria on. Not that Maria isn't a well-known person, because she's probably one of the most well-known people I've had on the podcast. But to me, what really separates her is her mission now of trying to help people understand that they need to be the CEO of their own health journey. And unfortunately, my sister has pancreatic cancer. And so I try to, and my grandmother died of colon cancer. So I try to do episodes at least once a month that focuses something around cancer prevention, cancer awareness, something. And so the real powerful story that came out of Maria's interview was the care journey that she had of, and I can't even imagine being in her situation where she's having to care for her mom who has a brain tumor, and then she, in the middle of it herself, finds out she has a brain tumor. And so she's both patient and caregiver, and then finds out that she has pancreatic cancer and then battles that. So it's just this incredible journey that she talks about during that episode of the same things that propelled her to becoming the host of E! News and on the Today Show were the same elements that allowed her to face these battles, whether it was her mom's battle with cancer, her own, and the heroic way that she has. And to me, that's the real message that I wanted people to hear. So thank you for bringing those up.
Absolutely. And it's the same as something as personal as talking with someone about their mom and the role that she played in one's life. It's a very personal, very sensitive topic, but we can all learn. That's the opportunity my microphone has given me since I was 18 years old, is to share these stories. So I'm very fortunate. John R. Miles, Passionstruck with John R. Miles is the podcast, and your website is passionstruck.com. John, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me, Jackie. And the one plug, if I can make it, would be, I am not wanting you to just buy another book or another thing from me for the sake of buying it. I have found myself in a state of unmattering that I never ever thought I would have reached. And I went from having this absolute passion in my life to feeling completely apathetic. And my purpose of trying to get this out in the world is, I don't think I'm alone. I think so many people, as Thoreau said, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. And I think so many people globally are facing this quiet desperation. And to me, what I've tried to create here from my own personal experiences is a pathway to get yourself unstuck and to become passion-struck and live the life that you desire to have for yourself. And so that is my hope in sharing everything that I do, is I want people to have significance in their life. And that is the gift that I'm trying to bring to humanity.
Bravo. We need every ounce that we can get. Sharing this knowledge that has moved and shaped us to be in a better place in our life. And you don't have to wait till you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s to have a realization of what the possibilities are.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And we'll be back next week with another episode of Should Have Listened to My Mother.